Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This is Descent Part 2. Yeah, Descents, they don't all happen at once. It's 2 parts. Descent Part 1, Part 2. This is Part 2. You're here for Descent Part 2. You know what? Fight that Descent. Keep it from happening in Part 2. Become a Patreon member or Patreon member. Patreon.com/IABD. You know what? We're having a renaissance there. That has nothing to do with Descents. I'm just saying, sign up now. Get on board now. Things are happening. Get on board. Go back and check out all the old stuff. Not just stuff. It's all been checked before. But the mothership, it's all been done radio hour. Go check it out. And now check out Descent Part 2. French. On It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Stephen.
And just the completely regular Keith. I'm off here most of
And
the
Jimmy
time.
Jerome. And we have a brand new guest with us today on the podcast.
Hello, I am
Hello.
Q.
Hi, Q. Welcome to the podcast. Q is a Star Trek fan. What is your Star Trek background, Q?
When I was growing up, I think what was airing was Enterprise, and I watched a bit of it, but mostly my passion was Next Generation.
Nice. So Enterprise was airing, but then you caught Next Gen. Was that on DVD or Netflix? Well, Netflix wasn't.
Just on television, but it was like what was going on, what was current was Enterprise.
Okay.
But I was constantly watching whatever, like out of order chaos with Next Generation.
Sure. Did you watch DS9 or Voyager?
No, I've seen bits and pieces. I'm more interested in, I think, Voyager's story. I find it really fascinating. Because of recent shows, I have read up on a bit of Deep Space Nine.
DS9's the best of them. It's so good. Check it out. I'd recommend it. It's pretty fantastic. It was really like the first serialized show on television. So that was pretty neat. You watching the new Trek?
Oh yeah. I'm caught up on I'm caught up on everything that's going on right now as far as the live action.
Okay. And not the animation, though.
No, I haven't watched the animation yet.
The animation's good, too. As a fan of Next Gen, I think you'll appreciate Lower Decks. Prodigy's kind of its own thing, but it's neat. I like it.
Yeah, I think Prodigy was the more kid one, right?
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of that.
Yeah.
It was very cute. I liked it, but I need to watch the Lower Decks.
Yeah. Prodigy takes a little bit of time to really get going, but it's a pretty interesting story. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk Descent now, our season 7 premiere. I can't believe we're on the final season of The Next Generation. See, I mean, we obviously have films and Star Trek Picard and stuff, but this is it. What were your first impressions of Descent Part 2?
It was reminiscence of Descent Part 1 in some ways. I was surprised at how much I'd forgotten. It felt like we hadn't watched TNG in like 2 months or something. When was it?
It was probably 6 weeks because of all the specials we did and just taking time off.
Yeah, I had the same reaction, Keith. My first note was, I guess Migelle's always done the previously on, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh boy, now I remember what part 1 was.
Yeah,
not my favorite.
Even with the allure of Lore being in it, is one of my favorite characters in the series. This was not up to. Once they got to the reveal, okay, I guess I kind of understood what was going on, but it didn't feel right, for lack of a better word. It's like it was like a poor use of the character, I guess. Didn't feel like the usual kind of.
And unfortunately, this was Lore's last appearance in The Next Generation.
No,
because we're in that final season where we're starting to say goodbye to characters. It will be literally decades before that character comes back on screen. So, yeah.
I don't know
I won't. I'm just saying. Thank goodness this isn't the very end, but it sucks as an ending for him.
Yeah, I'm gritting my teeth for the people at home about the potential spoilers, but just so they know.
I won't say anything else about it because I know I don't want to spoil you. But
when we get to that episode decades from now, Keith, you'll have forgotten.
Possibly.
It won't take us decades. I mean, probably at least 1 decade, but not decades.
Oh, God.
Besides the episode, I put the novelization down halfway through and put a bookmark in it. I didn't pick this up till a few days ago to finish it. So I felt the same thing like when I opened the book. I'm like, what happened in the previous chapter? Well, it doesn't matter. It's not the worst episode in the world. I did think part 2 might be slightly better than part 1, but yeah, probably because of the inclusion of Hugh. honestly, because he was a great character.
Mhm.
But yeah, lore disappointing finale for him in Next Gen. And I just didn't love Data in this. I didn't love Data's plot in this.
Right, it just felt so. Everything just felt off. I mean, it wasn't like I don't know. I feel like I would. I hate saying things like this. I feel like I would have done it differently. You know, it was like
Was it the
Go ahead.
mustaches that Data and Laura kept twirling? Was that the part of it?
The scientific explanation of Data being only fed negative emotions and causing a certain reaction, and it was treated almost like an addiction to him.
Yeah.
I get all that. It rang a little hollow. I feel like Data's moral center should have been stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It just it's like the offness of the characters either weren't strong enough or were too strong for it to feel like it made sense, I guess, as we were going through. Like even the way that Laura was behaving wasn't as something. What's the word? Whimsical? Something a little bit more more Q-like.
Yeah, I mean, I was more interested in the baby officers on the Enterprise, or whatever you want to call it, or officer babies, or whatever. I thought they were more interesting than, yeah.
Okay, that was actually that's I think that's a good way to for me to distinguish what makes the second one better than the first, or the second part better than the first Descent. I think featuring that.
Yeah, the book actually got it more into a little bit more into Tate and Barnaby and that relationship and Crusher, because those scenes are from Crusher's perspective, so we're in her head and how she's doubting herself and she kind of sees herself in Tate, and that's why she kind of bonds, because this is her first time in command, and Tate's been out of the academy for 6 weeks, so they're both kind of new, whereas Barnaby's a little more judgmental for a minute and then he's won over and they're all kind of buddies, and it's kind of a fun little story.
Yeah, I buried the lead there. It's Captain Crusher and the officer babies, actually. So I buried the lead there.
Well, Barnaby's not a baby, but yeah, Crusher's a baby in command. But yeah, Tate's the baby ensign.
Yeah.
Tate, played by Alex Statcher, best known for Passenger 57, The Expert, 18 Wheels of Justice, and this one episode of The Next Generation, according to IMDb. Not a ton of credits, 38, but nothing that I'm seeing that really stands out.
An episode of Martin, also.
Yeah, a lot of one-off guest spops, but
Oh God,
yeah,
that just registered the Martin, the TV show with Martin Lawrence. I take it.
Yes. Yeah.
God.
Martin.
Wow.
And Hershey.
And Barnaby was played by James Horan, who is best known for Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zeroes, and Batman Arkham Asylum. So a lot of video games and Destroy All Humans.
He's got
And of course,
86 credits, but yeah, most of them are video games.
And of course, his work in prostitution.
He was in an episode of The Orville. What's interesting about James Horan, though, he was in Star Trek on a bunch of different characters. This wasn't his. So, like 6 episodes ago, The Next Generation, not even, he played the role of Jabril in the episode Suspicions, the one with the Ferengi doctor. And in that episode, he played a scientist who tried to steal the metaphasic shielding technology.
Okay.
You remember? That's what they use in this episode, the metaphasic shielding technology. Yeah. So nice connection. When he says to Crusher, I know about that research. Yeah, because he played the alien that tried to steal it.
I thought he looked super familiar, but that kind of makes sense. But.
Yeah. So yeah, as we begin this story, all the main characters except for Crusher have beamed down. Actually, pretty much the whole crew has beamed down, like 1,000 people, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the extreme of like the original series where all the main characters go on a mission or whatever. Just so stupid. But it did strike me that this was the same thing that Next Gen did last year's season finale, Times Arrow, where everybody went through the time portal except for Worf.
Right.
Well, the senior officers. I guess I get why they want to include all the senior staff in the story. It just doesn't make sense to send all of your senior officers at the same time.
Yeah.
At the beginning, Lore speaks for Data, and Data affirms his loyalty for his brother. Where did that come from? Because last time we saw Data and Lore, like that loyalty sure happened quick.
Right.
He never had it before.
It seemed like there was a deep conversation that we missed in between there somehow.
Yeah, and this I wrote at the end of the episode after another 40 minutes of Lore, guilting Data. And I just wrote, even with AI, family is very emotionally manipulative. And doesn't care.
Yeah.
So good on AI development. They nailed it.
Lore sees leading the Borg as his life's work. It gave him purpose, and he gave them purpose. Do we think Lore needs that kind of purpose? I mean, I guess he has always kind of been alienated. So being part of a group or the leader of a group might speak to something in him, but he's also always seemed so psychopathic, like he doesn't care about anybody. I'm not sure if I totally buy that.
Right. Well, two things popped in my head there. One, of course, it could have been just a complete fabrication for the benefit of the Borg listening. And then sometimes that psychotic behavior can be like a sign of needing to have something to tether him to some, searching for purpose. He has these abilities and emotions that he doesn't have anything to do with. So here's something constructive to do finally, something to give him some sort of the higher power thing or some grandiose thing to do.
Well, the Borg were always seeking perfection, but their perfection was always presented as a combination of machine and biological. So for this group of Borg, I know this group's different, but for them to look at a pure machine as the perfection seems a little off too, because you'd think they'd be looking for artificial life forms earlier than this, if that's really what the Borg see as perfection, right?
Yeah, I was confused by the Borg too. Like, I wrote down, is there a better way to get to the setup of the Borgs, whatever their deal is, interacting? And I wrote down that my annoying character is Hugh, because I just thought he was so whiny. And this is another AI failure. The Borg is blaming everybody but themselves. They're like, you did this to us and you did this to us. We had nothing to do with it. It's like, even AI doesn't take responsibility. So once again, good job, people developing AI, because you're making them just like us. They're pointing fingers. They're whining. They're, no, we were good until you made me feel like I was an individual. And then more. You did that, Hugh. First of all, you got captured by, allowed yourself to get captured by the Enterprise. You got to take some responsibility here, buddy.
I mean, I have sympathy for Hugh because this is all new to him. I guess it's new to all the Borg, even newer for the rest of them than it is to Hugh.
Sure.
That's probably why they were so easily manipulated by Lore. So I kind of buy their end of that, other than, well, I guess I could see if they're that easily manipulated, they could suddenly see him as the perfect being if he's the one that gives them purpose. So, okay, maybe I take that.
I have another Star Trek motion picture note, so I'm just going to smush these together.
Mm-hmm.
V'ger in that movie, he lands on the robot planet, and they fix him. But I can't remember if they thought he was, or she, or they, V'ger was better than them, and they had to fix them, or they were just like, oh, we're going to fix this poor Earth primitive. I guess they knew it was primitive. They fixed it up and made it into this giant thing. But this goes to my other question, which was, I feel like, and we've talked about this a lot, especially in TNG, I think even TOS had more planets where, this is the Star Wars part of the podcast, is there a Star Trek Coruscant? Is there a planet other than the planet of machines that fixed V'ger that's all city and all that? It's always just the most bucolic, rustic, we're in the country setting and they have adobe homes and everything. I feel like there should be more very developed planets, but
I think you're right.
That's just a general, not specific to this episode.
I agree. I mentioned that, the whole crew's beamed down, and I was trying to wrap my head around exactly why they would do that just for data. I feel like the book did a better job of emphasizing that Data has so many Starfleet secrets in his head that if he is fully turned over, like much more than a regular officer who you would depend on, torture saying something, where Data, it's all stored. The memory banks are stored there and they can just access it. And he can remember perfect recall. So they talk about how much of a threat to the Federation it is if Data's entire brain and everything contained in it gets to the Borg. Because at this point, they don't necessarily know that this is a splitter group. So that's why they're putting so many more resources into this. Is if the Borg as a collective gets a hold of Data and gets everything he knows, that's the biggest threat Starfleet's ever seen. And I don't think that really came through in the episode.
No, it really did not. I didn't even think about it. It seemed like, well, I don't know if all right. Don't know if I even recall it being an emotional response that they were showing, maybe in the first episode or something, but it just kind of.
I just thought, hey, let's get our android back.
Yeah.
In the book, Picard actually recommends sterilizing the entire planet if they can't rescue Data.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, extreme.
Like, what would their babies do? That doesn't really make any sense.
And there's a in the
Thank you.
scene where Data comes in, Troy and Picard are trying to escape the jail cell, and Data comes in. Then at that point, and Data puts his arm around Geordi's neck, and Troy actually has a weapon at that point. In the book, that scene's from Picard's perspective, and in his head, he says Troy should have shot and killed Data, even if he killed Geordi. It's ridiculous she didn't. That is a failure of her training, that she hasn't had enough command training. This is so important and so vital. She should have taken the shot.
I guess there's no way to
Seemed intense.
to make Data fail safe, like to protect those secrets in his head. I guess
They should have some code at this point to fail safe him, right? The number of times he's taken over the show.
Like maybe
or he
just
just blows up.
programming shame into him or something.
Yeah.
Q, you might have noticed the best way to talk on the show is just start talking.
Yeah.
Don't wait for a gap.
No, I mean, do you have any thoughts or anything we might have missed that you've been?
Wait, well, when you were talking about how the Borg just like followed lore, I remember I was thinking, I think me and Keith were talking about how when a society is just messed up and struggling, it's really easy for some strong, opinionated individual to come in and swoop in and save the day. And they just kind of got wrapped around his finger in that way.
But his face wasn't orange and he doesn't have real estate holdings.
Oh no! Oh no!
He's got what is orange or green? I can't remember.
I thought you guys were referencing Mussolini because Lord made the trains
Same thing.
run on time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Trump never did that.
Nope. Nobody can do.
Early in the episode, when we see Crusher fleeing on the bridge, it just struck me just how empty that bridge was, because there's normally so many background actors and stuff beyond our main characters. It's so weird that at one point, I think it's just her and Tate on the bridge. And I don't think we've ever seen the bridge that empty other than when the whole ship was evacuated, like Picard was walking it one last time.
It was a very
Yeah,
low
and
budget bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, even the way it was shot for the most part. Yeah, I already spoiled this, but spoiler alert: I love Captain Crusher. The episodes that have been for Crusher, we haven't liked generally because they haven't been good. But I thought if this was her episode, like I said, I wanted to see more of her. I do have, and this is another general question, and might be more of a management style or captaining style. She used a lot of "I need to figure this out" rather than we as a ship need to figure it out. And I don't know. I couldn't really. I feel like Picard's a we guy and Kirk's an I guy, but I could be wrong. Like, and to me, it's more of a team building thing, I guess. Because
do you mean like something that she was literally saying, or just an attitude, but with the way things are presented?
Yeah, I think it was more. She was like, "Well, I have to make this decision, and I have to figure out how we're gonna do this, or whatever." And she did, to her credit. But I often, if somebody's like, "Hey, I need you guys to do this," that's less. That doesn't inspire me. I'm more inspired by, "Hey, we need to do this," as if we're all together, as opposed to, "You know what I need you to do? My work for me. Go put up that wall or whatever. Break down the wall."
Well, she has no command training. Like, this is a completely foreign experience for her. Although it is pretty weird that, I guess just this is the way the show's structured, but they keep talking about Troy and Crusher are the two that have no command training and don't know what they should do in these situations. It's like, that comes across as I mean, I know this novelization was written by a woman, but it does come across as sexist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean like happenstance as far as the two
of the seven main characters, the
Yes.
two that are portrayed as incompetent in their situations are the women.
Right. Well, so I was observing during, while we were watching this, just a couple of the more cynical ways of looking at it. As far as first of all, the way it was structured is such that Tate was about to leave the bridge and is like, "No, wait, I need you to stay here and go over and do the other thing." It came across certainly the part you were talking about, like the bonding and the novelization, but there was also the sense from like a budgeting perspective, or just even let's keep the one of the two actors we've actually paid to have lines, stay on the bridge, keep this going, so we don't have to bring somebody else in to do all the other thing, But I don't know. I felt like there was some sort of teamwork bonding thing happening there at least. And
I think we got there, yeah.
As Stephen was saying before, comparatively speaking, for Crusher episodes, I think they gave her something at least relatively meaty to do.
Mhm.
And the other thing, the reason why you would have those ensigns on the bridge, and just sort of conveying like how many people were just had left the ship, and this is all we have for the skeleton crew. Someone to sort of take the brunt of showing us, oh my God, these people they're so inexperienced right now, and Crusher didn't have to like. I don't think she looked incompetent while she was doing that. It seemed like she was pretty smooth and decisive. So.
I'm probably reading in. There's a scene in this book, and I have to believe it was probably a deleted scene from the episode, where when she goes to the transwarp corridor, and when she's in command, she decides to send that buoy through rather than take the Enterprise through as Picard had ordered her to. And in the book, Barnaby pushes back, and he's like, if you had training, you'd know that you're supposed to follow the orders and go through. Do you not realize what the stakes are if we don't get this message back to the Federation? And the Borg get data, the giant stakes that they've raised in the book that don't come through in the episode are very much. He tells her it's a bad command decision, and Picard kind of makes that reference at the end of the in-episode thing. But then her winning Barnaby over to a certain extent is part of the plot here, and by deleting that scene, I think it loses her arc, and that's probably where I'm reading the extra stuff into because I read the novelization that I'm. Yeah, you're right. I don't think that stuff came across on screen, and that's just what's in my head.
Well, yeah, there's another pro wrestling reference. If you're ever a hardcore into it, or at least understand the way that they would write storylines or promote their heroes, they might alter storylines sometimes. Something that's kind of reminds me of something Stephen said before. Like, both of you really. All right, too many subjects at once. Some parallel crossovers. Shatner, his reputation for going behind, to people behind the scenes and saying, I think my character should have more lines here. He shouldn't show this type of weakness. Blah blah blah. It's that kind of thing. You would have guys in the industry who were doing something very similar, and so you would transfer the weakness off of Crusher for the purpose of the episode onto Tate. So you have that. You saw that kind of thing happening between her and Barnaby. They would have those kinds of words that he would actually, giving the characters across, but without like weakening Crusher as a captain.
Yeah, I liked their exchange about make sure the calculations are correct. That he does it and then she throws it back. Tate throws it back at Barnaby. That was pretty fun.
So that was the winning over part though. So it wasn't like he was ever doubting Crusher.
Yeah.
Well, he says, well, what if our calculations are wrong? And my thought was, here's a thought. How about you double check them? You have a second set of eyes. Just a thought. I mean, if you're so snide about it, why don't you take a look at them, buddy? And rather than like, well, what if you screw up? It's like, how about?
Did it look to you like Barnaby had like eye ridges, some sort of alien makeup that was subtle? Because it did to me, but Memory Alpha says he's human. So I don't know if it was just...
Maybe he hadn't washed it off from the other episode. That's like the extra reference for them. It's like
I thought it was just arching his eyebrows to look more evil and whatever. But
that's probably it too. No, he like there was something to that. Like right off the turbo lift, he just had that face. Like I'm gonna be stern and I'm gonna be by the book, and I'm just I'm the one who's experienced now. I'm gonna relieve Tate, and she can
So Lore gets into his experiments where he's doing stuff to the Enterprise. I mixed Lore and Goring and started calling them Loring or Laring, I guess. The Nazi doctor who experimented on people.
Okay.
And then at one point, I think he says he's going to do it to all three of them because there's a 60% chance of failure.
Yeah.
Does that if each one has a 60% chance of failure, does doing it 3 times actually increase your chances of?
Well, they learn from each one, right?
Okay, I guess.
Right.
All right. Well, that makes sense. But
and different brain structures probably react differently. So that's why Data said if we do it to all 3, there's a good chance at least one of them it'll work. Whereas Lore, I think, just wants to kill them all 3, and this is just his.
I guess if the theory is your chances improve because you'll fix something. I guess that makes sense.
Well, no, even if 60%. So mathematically, you can't just add it up and say, okay, this is going to increase the odds necessarily. But it's like if you have a deck of cards, even if if you're doing coin flips, 50% chance of heads or tails. I mean, the more flips you do, it might come up eventually positive. But that doesn't mean that you're increasing the chances every time you flip, but you have more chances to, spin the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But yeah, you can't.
But
You
there's
can't go
also a good
statistically.
chance.
Right.
There's a good chance, though, that they're all going to. I mean,
Right.
60% chance. Actually, that's a perfect analogy, Keith, because that's just above a coin toss, actually.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's the reason. Well, the point was probably to convey that they are being that cavalier about just whatever.
Right.
We're just gonna keep throwing bodies at it until it works. And
Right.
Well, yeah, they've already been trying it on the Borg. We saw the results of some of those experiments.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
They looked like melted in spots.
I know. Yeah, it was
Well, I mean,
freaky.
what were? I guess I missed. What were they supposed to be doing exactly? I was kind of zoned out there.
They were doing something with they were going to map out the brain electronically and then kill all the brain cells and replace it with like an electronic, essentially like make a copy, replace your brain with our completely artificial brain.
So the positronic brain, like.
Mm-hmm. So you could get closer to achieving the perfection of being like Laura and Data.
This might be it, because this was my favorite line of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think Data says it. I am ready to irradiate your existing brain cells. Now, I have a follow-up question on that. Is that a come on or a boast? Baby, when I'm done with you, I'm going to irradiate every brain.
I've yet to get that one. So.
Brain cells. So,
I guess
Data taking Geordi's visor might have been the worst.
yeah.
Well, I think what it was about that it seems so uncharacteristic for him to jump to making physical threats.
Yeah.
With a phaser, no less. And not even just like I can just walk over and take it. He could just say that and it's like you can't stop me from doing it, as opposed to like I'm gonna look at my gun, do it or else. Making him.
He was outright cruel because he took the visor.
Mm-hmm.
Then he did the whole thing where he mimicked Picard's voice coming in to make Geordi think he was freed. The sense that he chalks up to a sense of humor, but it's just cruelty for cruelty's sake. And this is his best friend, and so that's where it really just feels unnecessarily bad. And then Geordi's line though about if you ever get through this, you're never going to forgive yourself for what you're doing to me. That really hit home. But then the conclusion of that is Geordi kind of not only forgives him, but is like, yeah, but we're going to keep the emotion chip and fix it. We're not going to let you destroy it, because I guess he understands how much it means to Data. And for Geordi to rise above everything that he went through is pretty darn impressive. I mean, we've made a lot about how terrible a character Geordi is for the first 5 seasons, but this is like peak heroic Geordi, putting his best friend first in every situation, even when his best friend is unbelievably evil.
I wish when Geordi told him he'll never forget this, Data had said, "Of course I won't. My memory is perfect. Of course I won't forget it."
I was going to say some things are starting to make more sense in retrospect, as far as the previously on why they were showing us specifically the counseling session where he was talking about it started to feel pleasure when I was doing this violent thing that I was thinking about, and then we put that together with what Lore was doing as we started to understand
feeding him the anger and hate from the emotion chip.
Yeah, so like here's doing this and associating it with good pleasure feelings. So in effect, encouraging Data to be as cruel as possible to feel good. I think there was a quick line in the first part where I think they were testing him by saying that something like, "How would you feel about doing this to your best friend, or doing this to Geordi," or something like that. It kind of called ahead to this in that sense. And we saw, I don't know, we've been kind of jumping all over the place. I think we've been going like roughly sequentially, right? I don't know. Have we been following?
I skipped to the end with the Geordi conversation just because we were talking about the Geordi relationship. But other than that, we've been kind of sequential.
Yeah. Right. So the reveal, we see some of the mechanism behind what Lore is doing to control him. Mm-hmm. We see that he's actually feeding him these emotions, and cutting him off from it and making him feel bad by even not having them. So
the addiction withdrawal type
right.
thing.
Why is it got to be under his fingernail? Oh, that's so uncomfortable. Didn't like it.
That was it does make you cringe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Does he have different controls under each fingernail for different?
That's the Angie. That's the Angie finger. Yeah.
Yeah, the other hand is the eject button that ejects the shuttle to the.
I mean, I keep my emotions in my fingertips, so it makes sense. No, I think the emotion chip itself is in his head. I think it just like has some kind of transmitter under the finger that's transmitting the anger and the hate.
Secret thing he's. Yeah, but that doesn't seem like very practical. I mean, I guess it's meant to be grotesque and kind of shocking, but
look how evil he is. He peels back his own fingernails.
Yes,
and doesn't even wince.
Yeah, so alien, so robotic. Look at this thing. Humans don't do this. Oh, okay. I mean, it could explain how he's maybe very purposefully retraining Data to do those sorts of things. Here's pleasure, here's pain, and it might explain it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable how addict in how much it felt like a drug to Data.
Yeah. I think that they went with the addiction metaphor just because that's easy for viewers to understand.
Yeah.
It makes them more human and more relatable.
It was something that Data wanted so badly.
Yes. Yeah. And they mentioned at the end that the emotion chip is broken. But Geordi says he's going to try to fix it. I mean, the fact that we're in the final season makes you think they probably won't follow up on it, right? Like, they'd see as many things like that they left in earlier seasons that we'll never get a follow-up on. At least this one we will get a follow-up on, but it feels like we probably
maybe
won't
we won't know. Just a way of knowing.
We get the follow-up, but it feels like we're not going to, and that's disappointing to me there.
I'm pretty sure my emotion chip is also broken. Just FYI.
And many of ours are.
Picard's fake escape attempt. Troy tells the Borg he was hurt on the force field, but he's like halfway across the room. He's nowhere near the force field.
I started to write down easiest jailbreak ever, and then I was like, oh, never mind. I tend to do this when there's a book, as I reference it too much, but I'm going to try not to. But in the book, there's even something that goes through Picard's head like, this stunt is so stupid and obvious, we shouldn't even try it. But I guess we're so naive that we might as well.
Fantastic. I guess I was distracted when that was happening, as tends to happen sometimes when watching these scenes. Which, getting it to the right. So what did happen? So they tried and they were caught immediately, or just?
Well, yeah, that's when Troy got the weapon and ran out and tried, and then Data was coming with Geordi.
Okay.
But Picard did manage to get that chip off the Borg that he used later to reboot Data's ethics, so it worked out. Okay.
Okay, that's what they were.
That he powered with the force field by shoving it into the force field.
Okay, so when we were watching, there was a bit of confusion during the Hugh's heroic appearance. Were there other colonists, I guess, or other of the offshoot that came in to help fight? Because it seemed like it almost looked like there was just the people there just started fighting each other, or the Borg. It was hard to distinguish between which Borg were good or bad.
My theory was that the Borg that pushed down Hugh was the one immediately working with Lore. I forget his name.
Process.
Yeah, and so he was the one I think that all the Borg were connected to. So if he got shot down, then maybe that started some infighting.
Well, while they're all connected, they all have free will, unlike other Borg. These have all been freed from the collective. So some of them were hiding in the caves with Hugh, and they all kind of came up at that time. But it's not clear that that's what happened.
Right.
Or anybody that was doubting Lore, you see the weakness, you might decide, oh, somebody's fighting back. Maybe I'll join them. Who knows?
This is when we start punching everyone.
I do have a question.
It's like a bar fight. Somebody throws one stool, and people just start randomly fighting each other.
Yeah, it is like in the Old West Saloon in those B movies. But so when they're captured, and remind me if there's something from part one I'm forgetting, but when they're captured, it's Geordi, Troy, Picard, and there's a security officer there. We even see him at the very beginning of the episode in the chamber. But then he doesn't get put in the cell with them, and we never hear about him or see him again.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
what happened to the security officer?
Experimentation. Maybe it was killed before they even got put in there. Maybe he just wasn't budgeted in.
See that happen.
What color was his shirt?
Yellow, because they swapped the colors from the original to next gen. Red shirts were security in original. Gold shirts are security in next gen.
Is it still the same trope though?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there weren't that many red shirts that died in the original series, and there were plenty of people in yellow and blue that died in the original series too. So the trope never really held up anyway.
I remember being kind of disappointed about that when we were watching TOS. You keep waiting for certain things to kind of. It was even with the the Shatnerisms as far as waiting for him to do those delivery things where everyone always jumps on for the stereotypes. It didn't really happen nearly as often as you would expect.
Waiting for him to sleep with Vina. He was never even in an episode with Vina. Well, I guess technically the Nazher he was, but they weren't in the same.
Right.
Yeah, the thing of it's Kirk is seducing a green-skinned woman, and that wasn't until Kelvin.
We're up to my notes the part where Beverly flies the ship into the sun, which was pretty cool.
She says that will take us into the sun. Should they? I guess it makes sense to call it the sun, but to me,
she said the corona of the sun, I believe.
Oh yeah,
well, that fixes it.
Yeah,
could it be Rigel 2 or whatever the system was?
I don't remember what the system was, but yeah, I mean, they didn't go all the way to the massive burning gas. They were just like within, for lack of a better term, the sun's atmosphere. They were.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what Steven is trying to say is that Earth usually calls our sun the sun, as opposed to it being like some other random star.
I see.
But like it's shorthand, though. It is the sun of the system they're in currently, I guess.
Right.
Which would,
I guess that's...
In Star Trek, they've established that Earth's sun is called Sol.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
Well, I mean, that is the name for it, but still, I don't know.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, though. But.
Yeah.
Oh, Sol.
The story that Geordi brings up to Data about how he got out of a boat but he sunk because he wasn't buoyant. That was pretty funny. I kind of wanted to see that. Data refuses to kill Picard at the end. I guess, I mean, we're meant to believe that ethics subroutine worked based on what we can see, but it was never fully clear that it was what exactly was happening there.
Okay, I think you reminded me of what I was getting at before. One of the thoughts that scattered is it just seems so unnatural that you would, even if you were being trained to do something cruel, his behavior didn't quite make sense. Of just sort of like completely forgetting all of his past relationships, it seemed like, and you could see, I think, both Picard and Geordi at some point trying to like probe him to see, hey, do you remember this thing happening? Mm-hmm. Hey, are you still dead? Are you really in there? Because it did seem really strange, even up to that point where he finally sort of acknowledged, I thought it was going to be a trick of some sort, like to say, oh, we never did that, or something.
No, I think we were supposed to believe if they didn't reboot the ethics chip with that device, that Data would have killed Picard and Geordi and been lost forever. Data shoots Lore, and in the book, it's very clearly an execution. But in the show, I don't think it was totally clear that like he was making a decision to take I mean, they mentioned later that Lore is deactivated and dismantled, and Data keeps the emotion chip, but. Yeah, I don't think they make enough of that. The Data takes down his brother, the only person like him in the universe. I wish we would have.
Bit of a goodbye, and Lore says "I love you," and then Data says goodbye, and then when his the pupils just disappear, that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean the "I love you," and then they say, "Oh, what? Without me, you'll never feel again." Lore says. He says, "I know, but you leave me no choice." And that moment's moving, but I guess what I was expecting is I wanted to see when Data and Geordi are talking later. No, when Data and Geordi are talking later, I wanted to see a lasting effect beyond that scene, and we didn't really get anything.
Okay, so you mean for the purpose of the scene that Q was just describing? I mean, there was it felt like there was monumental enough that they were making a point of looking at the finality of this kind of closure moment. But you're saying that there was something they should have referred to kind of get it across to the audience that this wasn't coming, that he's not coming back, or there's like a continuity thing, or
no. I mean, we know Data can't feel; he doesn't have the emotion chip, right? But there's always been something about Data that feels like he does have a little bit of feeling, even though we don't see it. Unlike Orville, where we've got Isaac, who truly doesn't feel. Data always feels like he feels a little bit, and so the way they put the weight of him taking down his brother. And then a scene later, talking to Geordi, he doesn't seem at all bothered. Like, here's this chip I took out of my brother that I killed and dismantled.
I see.
I agree with you, and I've said before that I know, and you guys have always referenced the emotion chip. I've always thought like well, he should be evolving in some way, you know, and some of that I think involves emotions. There's sons he's expressed that, I feel like, and then to reject it, it's kind of like Spock on the original series where it's like, oh, we learned about his emotions, and then a week later McCoy's like, you emotionless, green-blooded, blah blah blah. It's like, no, don't you remember last week when he showed his emotion?
Yeah,
you were there, you were right there. So
I think even for the Orville, which Isaac, that character, I think in both cases, I don't know, maybe it varies by the writer. It feels like there are some weeks where they kind of cheat that, and they kind of keep implying that, well, technically I don't have emotions, but blah blah, some sort of convoluted rationalization to explain why he did some sort of action that appeared emotional. But the audience is supposed to take from that, but that counts as emotions. Look, you have that kind of teasing, and that's very common for Data. That sort of ending.
And maybe he's just overcorrecting at the end of the episode.
Maybe.
Could be that too.
Well, it seems like a good time to mention that this was written by one of our regular writers, Renee Artavaria, who was on staff and part of the leadership. It wasn't just some random person that didn't know how to write Data.
That is very strange. Because like all the way up through the episodes, we were saying it seems almost like kind of par for the course. We get to the end and he's just something seems a little off about the way he should be translating what has happened. But
yeah,
I don't know.
There's literally no consequences for Data when this ends. He walks back out and they're like, okay, let's go home.
Yep. Well done. Go team. We did it.
I mean, if somebody got drunk and destroyed the bridge and almost killed people, like there'd be consequences. This is I think this is kind of like that. I don't know.
He almost irradiated his best friend's brain, and it's like, it's cool, guy.
Yeah.
You were just high on emotions. It's fine.
There's no talk about how can we make sure this doesn't happen again.
When do we? I mean, who knows if the replicator is gonna, he's gonna get affection for the replicator. The replicator's gonna kill everybody, and then he's off killing everybody again.
Or he falls in love with the exocomp. We know how awful those things are.
Yeah.
Like Peanut Hamper and him could be,
Now I feel like we're being machinists or whatever we want to call us. But still,
no, now I'm bringing in Lower Decks references that I'm sorry Q doesn't get.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
But I know you two have seen Lower Decks, so
yes. You'll enjoy it when you get there.
The thing,
that one especially.
I mean, there are things that could have happened off screen, and if you think through it, what would they do exactly to punish him in that situation? You said like we're on the beginning when you were talking about how or why they might send like the entire ship down with the stakes involved. He already has some sort of leverage in essence. You have something that, a being that doesn't feel that kind of conventional physical pain or the passage of time in the same sort of way. I mean, if you just put him in the brig for an arbitrary amount of time, like how long is it going to take to like rehabilitate him or punish?
I'm not saying put him in the brig. I am saying though they should be like, look, we can't allow the danger that you pose here to continue. We need to take steps to fix that, and then maybe there is a court martial to hold, at least do a hearing about his actions, whether you decide to side with him or not.
Right.
He did some pretty serious offenses.
Yeah, it's I guess it's certainly worth at least like a conversation.
Yeah.
A meeting, something around the table to say, this could be a problem at some point. Data, will you do this again? No, I promise I won't.
That's what he said last time he went crazy and took over the ship, and then here we go again.
Yep.
The goodbye scene between Picard and Hugh I really liked. I wish we got more Hugh. I wish he had been in both parts and they'd really developed out his evolution, because we got so much of him in I, Borg, and he was a great character. That it was a little disappointing how little we got of him, and like Lore, it will be decades before we follow up with Hugh. But
see, that just gave damn.
But we will eventually follow up with you.
You mean one Borg, as I call it?
One comma Borg. Yeah.
Yes.
Did they put a comma?
I remember. I do not believe it had a comma in the episode, but most of the time it's written with the comma now. Yeah. And then Picard scene with Crusher, that whole thing where she's like, basically, I don't ever want to be in command again. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. Most of my notes are fashion notes. Fashion.
Okay.
I love Troy's extensions in this episode. I thought they were perfect. I have a feeling next week I'm going to feel the exact opposite. Just a hunch. Just a hunch. I like Hughes changing light eye, like from different angles and different. It was green.
And it was down below the eye socket. Which
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was starting to think about that as far as we saw the lineups of Borg. I mean, like a couple other pictures over there. As far as pretty uniform where all the eye placements were. It looked like the one that had disconnected himself, like the eye was extended outward or something. Was I seeing that wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the side profile, but the one where I did like that scene where we saw Laura actually using like persuasive manipulative techniques to talk this guy back in, as opposed to just doing something outwardly cruel. And I kept waiting, for the first few seconds, I'm still waiting for him to do that thing where it's like, oh, it's okay, neck snap or something. Let that be a lesson to everybody. One of those things. But no, he was really taking the effort to talk him down and back in. But it looked, something seemed a little
kind of
different.
telescopic.
Yeah.
I essentially have my last fashion nose. I like that they all have their own flair, if you will.
Yeah.
But I love the looks overall. And I think we talked about this. Maybe the last time we saw a bunch of Borg. Are they metal? Is it leather? Is it plastic? Is it synthetic?
Yes.
How bad does it smell? Just how bad does it smell?
Probably pretty bad because I never saw a shower in the Borg cube.
It's probably one of the those arrays they back themselves into. Maybe there's some sort of
Maybe.
They all look low key rotted a bit.
Yeah.
that too. The skin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Laura's bodysuit looked like it had body armor built into it.
Oh wait.
Foam pecs.
Yeah.
They were definitely foam
okay.
pecs.
Yeah.
The light
And a
is
phone
from my
butt.
chair disappeared. There we go.
And
Almost got it.
I do have two notes about uniforms. One, if Data really quit Starfleet and joined Lore, he should have taken off the uniform. He should have worn something else, get rid of the badge, everything. And then the other one is at the very end when Geordi comes in to talk to Data. Data's like, "Oh, you haven't returned to duty yet?" He's like, "Nope." And I'm like, "But he's in uniform. Why is he in uniform if he hasn't returned to duty yet?"
Well, it seems
They just wanted to save costume budget. Is the explanation for both of those things?
right. But I mean,
Well, and how would we?
wait, do we see Data really ever changing clothes unless he's going like the holodeck or something?
No, but other Starfleet officers, like when Worf resigns, he like leaves the comm badge before he runs off to kill Duras. You'd think Data would change clothes.
Does Data change when he acts? I think when he performs and when he.
Yes,
I don't know.
he wears costumes.
When he's acting. He does. Today, yeah. I mean, if he didn't wear his uniform, then how do we tell him from Lore? Which is another angle they could have gone with.
So that you touch upon my alternate episode, which is really just an alternate ending. Is Data and Lore went off and had their final confrontation by themselves in the back room, and so whoever walks out acts like Data, looks like Data, and then we get just a hit at the last second that Lore has replaced Data. This is a cliffhanger.
My alternate episode was also dark or darker. It's Data just still enjoys killing for good, but he still enjoys just killing for no reason needed.
For good.
They're the bad guys, and I'm going to rip their heads off. So,
well, that's another great sign of AI engineering. More human things of real life human beings who have tendencies toward violence and finding ways to do that for good.
There are two things AI is going to be used for. AI is first going to be used for porn and to kill people for the military. We know this already. We know this. So Star Trek's already there. Speaking of porn, more or less, but this isn't really porn. This we can keep our clean rating with this. But Crusher, the way she says it, she says when they're talking about going into the sun, or the corona, or whatever, enter orbit here. She says orbit.
I missed it.
Go back and listen to it.
Okay, I believe
She
you.
says but. I'm going to hear it. And what's a butt for? No, but anyway, that was my last note. So.
Directed by Alexander Singer, this episode, one of our regulars as well. So I don't need to get into that. Let's get to the rankings then, because this one's gone on long enough. Who was your? I think a lot of the time we wasted was me and my internet connection, apparently. So
right.
I will at least restart my internet connection in between episodes. But who was your annoyance?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm going with Data for everything we talked about.
Yeah. That's a good call.
Who was my annoyance?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just everyone.
Oh, Hugh. Hugh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying
Yeah.
who was. Yes.
Yeah, he did say. I heard who,
Oh.
but it took me a second to.
Third base.
Hugh, who was your annoyance?
I think I'd have to agree with Data. It was just very weird how he was acting the whole time.
Yeah. Beyond what it should have been with what the explanation was, I think.
Mm-hmm. Just too.
Who are we having a
extreme.
drink with?
I was going to go with my usual base instinct. Not even base, actually. Tate, it would have been good to have a drink with her and be like, hey, man, what was it like?
Yeah.
But then late in the episode, Spot showed up, so it's Spot.
Spot being
Have a
David's
saucer
cat.
of milk.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
That was
always
nice.
going to hang with Spot when Spot shows up.
I gotta go with Brett Spiner. He always seems to be having so much fun when he plays Data and Lore in the same episode. I'm going outside the characters, and I'm going to just have a drink with Brett Spiner.
I don't know. I was going to say before, it just didn't seem. I guess that wraps up the thing that felt off. Is it didn't feel like he was having as much fun as he usually does. There's something about the way it was written, something about didn't get to see a lot of faces being made and that kind of thing. So I will be the jerk now and just go with Tate. I think
Okay.
Instant Tate and Q.
I like Tate. I like Tate.
Yeah, Tate was cool.
Yeah.
I agree. That's a good choice.
And then
Ranking the
never see her
episode.
again, right?
Hmm?
We
Sorry?
never see her again. Oh, sorry, Keith.
No,
We never
I'm
see her
pretty.
again.
I'm pretty confident we never see her again, or Barnaby.
Oh, yeah.
I guess Barnaby was supposed to be a recurring character, but never panned out. So
They probably got promoted, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
he's not in the lower decks anymore. I'm calling this worst episode of the season so far.
Makes sense.
Yep. Agreed.
Cool. 1 of 1. Next week, we're staying with the next gen. We're watching Liaisons. On a diplomatic mission, Worf, Troy, and the captain deal with 3 aliens who explore foreign concepts with extreme singular focus. Another spoiler of a.
That is,
that's
comes
too much.
dangerously close.
I think that crosses the line of close, Keith. I think that's outright gives away the twist.
Yeah, I would say that's
Even just bringing up Worf is just too much.
right. So I would say that these would be dangerous liaisons for the next episode.
Yeah.
Then. Yes, it was all awful.
Until then, live long.
Like Data and Spot and Prosper.
Oh, I just remembered something I was supposed to say before about the negative emotions thing, but we'll cover next week.
This will not be Spot's last appearance, Stephen, I can assure you.
Yes.
Good.
Right, so yeah, live long and prosper with positive emotions. You know, the ones that the counselors promote all the time.
There we go.
Positive ones, not negative ones.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?